Prague off the beaten track, Vít Pohanka takes you away from the crowds to the city's hidden gems.
Hello and welcome to Prague off the beaten track. I'm Vít Pohanka, and in this episode I'll take you to a place with a rather mysterious name, Dívčí hrady, or girls' castles. But don't let the name fool you. There's no actual castle here, and I don't see any girls. The story behind the name is something we'll get to a bit later. For now, imagine a nature reserve and an open landscape that feels far removed from the usual tourist crowds of Prague. I'm actually standing right now on the rocks just below the hilltop known as Děvín. From here the view is truly spectacular. Below me the Vltava, or the Moldau River, winds its way through the city. I can clearly see the towers of Vyšehrad rising on the opposite bank, marking one of the oldest and most legendary sites in Prague. Just beyond that, the river bends gently towards the center of the city, hidden from view behind the steep hills. Nearly directly ahead of me, I can spot the slender tower of the Czech national television, perched on Kavčí hory hill. Not far from it, the high-rise buildings of Pankrác break the skyline, standing like modern sentinels above the city. Swinging my gaze now further to the right, the massive monolithic blocks of Jižní Město, or simply Jižák as locals call it, stretch out along the horizon. Prague's largest housing estate, a concrete reminder of the socialist era. Yet, between these urban giants, patches of green emerge. The more peaceful neighborhood of Braník, with its tree-lined streets and scattered villas, brings a softer, I would say almost suburban feel to this part of Prague. It's a fascinating mix of nature, history and modern urban development, all visible at a single glance. Now, this rocky viewpoint where I'm standing right now actually borders the Prokop Valley, or Prokopské údolí in Czech, a place I covered in one of the previous episodes of Prague of the Beaten Track. On one side, the valley drops kind of steeply, and on the other side, the area known as Dívčí hrady stretches out in front of me. And honestly, even if you came here just for this view, it would be worth the trip. Standing here with Prague's past and present unfolding before your eyes, you get a sense of the city's layers in a way that's hard to find anywhere else. But now I'm leaving this rocky ledge behind and starting to walk down a gentle slope. The path leads into open meadows. I think it's the heart of Dívčí hrady. It's a quiet, almost pastoral landscape right here in the city. And as I make my way through these meadows, I think it's the perfect moment to tell you something about the name of this place. So, why girls' castles? Where did that unusual name come from? As with many things in Prague, the answer lies somewhere between legend and history. So the name Dívčí hrady, or girls' castles, is rooted in Czech legend, specifically in the ancient tale of the Dívčí válka, the girls' war. The earliest version of this story appears in the Chronica Bohemorum, written by the Czech chronicler Cosmas in the early 12th century. Cosmas, who wrote in Latin, described a legendary conflict between men and women in the early days of the Czech lands, though he didn't directly associate the events with this particular hill. And his version served as the foundation for later, more colorful versions of the tale, because a few centuries later the story was retold in the Dalimil Chronicle, this time in Old Czech, where it gained dramatic details and stronger links to specific locations. According to legend, a group of rebellious women, led by a warrior named Vlasta, established a fortified settlement and waged war against men from surrounding areas. Over time, people began associating various hills and rocky outcrops around Prague, including Děvín, With these mythical female warriors, the local name Děvín itself, connected to the Czech word for girl or maiden, děva, helped reinforce this association. And then the story's popularity grew during the 19th century when Alois Jirásek included it in his famous collection Staré pověsti české, Old Czech Legends. This period of Czech national revival gave new life to ancient myths, and it was likely around this time that locals began referring to this area as Dívčí hrady. Not because any real castle stood here, but because the name evoked images of Vlasta and her rebel maidens, giving the hill a touch of romantic legend. If we move forward, at the start of the 19th century, the area of Dívčí hrady looked very different from today. So instead of open meadows and walking paths, where I am right now, there were small agricultural fields separated by dirt tracks. Local farmers cultivated the land for generations, and this peaceful rural use of the landscape was interrupted during the Second World War, when the German army actually identified the plateau as a strategic location to protect nearby factories. So they established an anti-aircraft artillery posts here, the remains of which can still be found inside and outside of the enclosure that I will mention later, where Przewalski's horses now roam. After the war, farming resumed, but under communist rule the small fields were merged into large uniform plots. By the second half of the 20th century, a single broad field covered much of the plateau. Locals still recall those days. Maize and fodder crops were grown here. People from nearby allotments collected leftover corn, and in autumn children gathered to fly kites in the windy conditions typical of this exposed plateau. Later on, following the Velvet Revolution of 1989, plans to build housing were thankfully abandoned. Instead, the city preserved the area as an open landscape. In 2017, Prague's Department for Environmental Protection planted long lines of fruit trees, pears, plums, walnuts, and even the rare edible sorb trees known as oskeruše in Czech. Inspired by 18th century traditions, these orchards offer both beauty and practical benefits, serving as windbreaks in this breezy landscape. So after a walk of, I would say, some 2 to 3 kilometers, or about 2 miles, I think, not more, I'm standing on a simple wooden observation platform that overlooks the enclosure of Przewalského koně. From here, you can scan the gently rolling terrain that stretches across the plateau. But to be honest, right now the Przewalski's horses aren't easy to spot. They're grazing somewhere in the distance. But if you're lucky, and if you come here either in the morning or late in the afternoon, you might catch sight of them near the wooden shed, which is tucked away in one corner of the enclosure, where they often seek shade or shelter from the wind. And this whole enclosure, by the way, is a part of a special project of Prague Zoo. These are no ordinary horses. Known as koně Przewalského in Czech, they are the last surviving species of truly wild horse on Earth. Once declared extinct in the wild, they survived thanks to breeding programs in zoos, Prague Zoo playing a key role in their conservation. So the small herd here at Dívčí hrady roams across some 20 hectares of steppe-like grassland, and they are left here to graze freely and move naturally. Visitors like me can only watch from respectful distance, and that's exactly how it should be. They are actually expected, the Przewalski horses, to help develop the kind of natural landscape, the natural conditions of the steppe-like meadows that are natural to this particular region in this part of Prague. So, if you'd like to see what Dívčí hrady, girls' castles, look like. You can find some photos, a map, and some more information about the area on our website at radio.cz. Just look for Prague off the beaten track. As always, I encourage you to explore it in person if you can. Whether you come for the open meadows, the sweeping views of Prague, the quiet presence of the wild horses, or simply to enjoy a peaceful walk just outside the city centre. It's not that far. You will find practical information how to get here on the website. And believe me, Dívčí hrady is definitely well worth the visit. It's one of those rare places where I would say history, legend, nature, but also modern city life meet. And yet it remains surprisingly off the beaten track, because as I was recording this episode, walking around, I met just a few people. And it's Sunday afternoon in summer, when you would normally expect that people would be heading to places like this in large numbers, but that's not happening. So, until next time, stay curious and naslyšenou.
Prague off the beaten track. Vít Bohanka takes you away from the crowds to the city's hidden gems.